Hey guys, it's me, Dax Moy from Fitness Marketing Made Simple and FitSystemTraining.com. I am back with another of my mad ramblings, if I can get this triffid off of me. Another of my mad ramblings. And today's mad rambling is really quite simple. It's asking, are you a toxic trainer? Are you a toxic coach? Whew, well, that'll get a lot of people's backs up, right? Kind of immediately, you'd be wondering what I'm talking about here. Here's the thing. One of the things that I've been kind of thinking about for quite some time in this industry is the idea that unwittingly we as fitness professionals have bought into a lot of the same bullshit, a lot of the same crap that the medical profession has bought into. Okay, because for a while we've been trying to model ourselves loosely around medicine, but we've picked up a lot of their bad habits too. And certainly from my own perspective, I've been fortunate enough to educate and employ kind of lots and lots of trainers over the years. And one of the things I keep picking up on is this toxic trainer syndrome that kind of most trainers bring to my business when they first get here. I'm just wondering whether you've got the same going on in your business, and maybe whether you yourself might be a toxic trainer. So let's look at what I define as a toxic trainer. First off, a toxic trainer is someone who feeds in to their own clients' fears and frustrations and neuroses. Okay, so yes, I'm all about meeting the client where they are, but it's definitely important that you don't feed the client. Okay, the client already has enough fear, the client already has enough frustration, yet there are lots of trainers that buy into that, and we buy into it in a lot of different ways, like the pressure we put on people to adhere to our systems, the pressure that we put on people to that they must follow our dietary protocols. And look, before anybody kind of calls me out on this, I was one of those guys as well. My dietary protocol was pretty strict. My training protocols are pretty strict. My homework protocols are pretty strict. And in many respects, they kind of still are, but not strict in the way that most people would think of it. We're strict as in the client must be on a plan, they must be following something, but the client is actually instrumental in devising their own plan. They're not following something that Dax Moy said they must do. Why? Because they're all adults, and so am I, right? It's not my job to tell another adult what they must do, but what I believe my job is very much is empowering them to make better decisions. When I take away their decision-making ability and I just tell people what to do, I feed into their neuroses, I feed into their frustrations and their anxieties, because essentially I feed into the fact that they don't know how the hell they should be living their life, and they must have me. Okay, and the tighter the leash, the more we try to control the client, the more likely they are to want to try and pull away. Okay, so we're not really helping them, we're actually adding to their fear. What's the other part? We tend to create approaches that reinforce those fears. Okay, think about it. Most of our clients have a really shitty relationship with exercise, normally starting when they were in PE, right? When they were quite young, and the PE teachers would basically make them do a whole bunch of stuff they didn't enjoy doing in front of kids who would take the piss and laugh at them and all that kind of stuff. They have a negative relationship with exercise. They also have a negative relationship with diet. They're kind of, many of them have been back and forward on every kind of diet you could name, from almost full starvation to full Atkins to full, you name it. They've been on everything, and they have a pretty shitty relationship with food. And so what is a personal trainer or coach's first response to a client when they come in? The client comes in and says, hey, I've hit a sticking point, and we essentially have them exercising really hard and eating a lot less than they're used to eating, right? That's a general typical approach. And the client does get some results, and they finally start to feel a little bit better about themselves. But at the same time, they're like, I can't wait till this stops and I can go back to my normal eating, right? Because that's where most clients end up. They are counting down the days until they go back to the way they were eating before, because they always see it as a short-term fix. They see it as a short-term fix also because when they hit their first plateau, and they will, what do? What we tend to do is boost up the training even harder and make the diet even stricter. Okay, and that's really, for most trainers, that's really the only answer we've got. We keep boosting the training up, making the diet stricter. So what we are essentially saying is people with an already shitty relationship with exercise are going to get shittier and shittier relationships with exercise, because we're going to make it harder and harder, worse and worse for them. They're going to get sore and sorer, more and more tired, and enjoy it less and less. We're also going to make their diet harder and harder, shittier and shittier, hungrier and hungrier. Right? It doesn't make sense. We're actually creating approaches that generally tend to feed into the fear. It definitely doesn't create lifelong adherence. And number three, we have a tendency to, I guess, we focus on the downstream effects. Okay, someone is fat, we think it's all about exercise and nutrition, and we beast them back into shape and they lose it, and they gain it back, and we beast them back into shape and they lose it and they gain it back, and we over and over and over again. We're not really spending much time on the upstream effects, and the upstream effects in this case are always behavior. It's clients' behavior. And where does behavior stem from? It stems from belief systems. It stems from values. In other words, it stems from what most of us would call psychology. It stems from the area of how a client thinks, what they believe, what they believe to be true for themselves. Okay, and if we're not changing what they believe to be true for themselves, if we're not actually going all the way upstream and changing that, then what are we really doing? What the bloody hell are we doing? Just taking people out into parks or into gyms and just keep throwing barbells on them or asking them to lift stuff up and put it down, whether that be themselves, a kettlebell or whatever. What are we doing with them? Okay, yes, there are some clients who, if their self-esteem isn't too bad, that we can access it from the other end. We can make a bit of a physical change and they feel better about themselves. But that's not true for the bulk of people, is it? The bulk of people aren't getting a really great relationship with exercise and then saying, "Wow, my self-esteem's changed and everything feels brilliant." The bulk, the greater majority of people you've ever trained in your life haven't really changed their relationship with exercise. Okay, so I guess what for me then, kind of, when I think about the toxic trainer, the toxic coach, what I mean by toxic is they're someone who perpetuates the very same cycle that is likely to keep the client feeling exactly the same way they currently do about themselves. In other words, a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, they feel the same way about exercise and diet and themselves and their self-esteem and their own worth as they did when they first started with you. Nothing's really changed. And the same complaints are going on over and over again, and the same obstacles are getting in their way. If month in, month out, year in, year out, the client is meeting the same obstacles all the time, it suggests to me that the approach isn't working. The approach isn't working. And to me, that's what the toxic coach is. And I think it's so easy to turn that around. It's so easy to be the person who says that you're not going to feed into the client's fears. It's so easy to be the person who is not going to create approaches that kind of perpetuate the awful experience most people have. And it's so easy to be the person who's going to go all the way upstream. Okay, all the way upstream, and start changing the way a person feels and the way a person believes about the things they're caught up in. But very few people are doing that. And I wonder if you are. I wonder if you, and I wonder if your company and the coaches who work for you are working at that level. It'd be really interesting to know. So this isn't one of those kind of telling you what to do things. This is just a mad rambling, really. This has got nothing to do with me saying, hey, you must do these things. This is just a set of Dax Moy beliefs, but I'd love to hear what you think, whether you think it makes a lot of sense or whether you think I'm talking shit. Put it in a box below. I'd love to hear it. Take care.